Welcome to Tech in the Right Direction, the podcast. This week, I'm speaking with Jean Ann Booth, a serial entrepreneur with a number of successful exits, has 30 years of experience in high technology, and has raised over $100 million in venture capital for her startup companies. Now on her fourth startup, Unali wears Kanega Watch, which is the only medical alert watch you can wear 24/7 that has fall detection. With a patented quick swap battery system in the band, wearers never have to take off the Kanega watch to charge. And the company's patented real fall trademark technology is literally revolutionizing the world of fall detection and response. Jean Ann was previously the founder of Luminary Micro, the creators of the Stellaris microcontroller MCU platform. Luminary Micro was acquired by Texas Instruments in May of 2009 and was one of that year's top 5 venture-backed acquisitions. She was also the founder of Intrinsity, which was sold to Apple in April 2010. Welcome to the show, Jean Ann. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the invite.
Sure. And then let's get started. So, Jean Ann, as a woman in tech, can you share with us your career journey and how you got to where you are today?
Oh, yeah. So I'll try to make this short because, that's the challenge about being an older adult is, well, it's kind of long, but
Mhm.
um, I'm an electrical engineer. So 30 years in semiconductors, and then I retired, and then I came out of retirement for my latest startup. So
Ah.
just to kind of back that up a bit, on the engineering side of things, I actually went to college. I was going to do computer science.
Mhm.
And at that time, computer science was a Bachelor of Arts degree,
Mhm.
and I didn't want to do Bachelor of Arts. And so I changed to electrical engineering. So that was exactly how much thought I gave it. Um, so I want to start by dispelling the myth that says all engineers know they're going to be an engineer once they're, super small.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and I want to start also with the um, y- suggestion that if you aren't sure what you want to do when you look at college, do look at engineering, because the one thing that it tells everybody is that you know how to learn. And that's kind of key to my career journey. So NASA actually put me through college. I worked at Johnson Space Center in the Space Shuttle Transportation System office, and every other semester. And that was how I earned the money to go back to school the next semester. Then
Mhm.
graduated with an electrical engineering degree. Um, spent, I think, a year, maybe two, in industrial process control, and then switched over to semiconductors, 30 years there, including 2 startups. And then, like I said, retired, and then came out of retirement and started Unaliware, which is my current startup today.
Wow. Wow, that's quite a journey and a
Yeah.
great journey. But going into retirement and coming back out, I know the feeling. I'm kind of doing that right now. I'm coming back to work just because, I really have a passion for what I do, and it sounds like you have a passion for startups.
I guess I do. I honestly, when I retired the first time, I stayed retired for about 3 years, and I swore if I did something else, which I figured I probably would, but I
Mhm.
swore I would never do another physical product company, and here I am again with another physical product company. So there you go. Shows how much you know
Wow.
when you make these
You don't.
promises.
Right, right. So how has your journey with Unilever Wear have been different than your previous startups?
Yeah, so Unaliware is let me just kind of explain the name first, because it isn't your usual word, but then again,
Mm-hmm.
it's not your usual company.
Mm.
Unali is a Native American word. It's Cherokee for friend, and
Ah,
our watch is a Kanega watch, and Kanega is Cherokee for speak. So we're the friend who speaks to you, which to
that's
me
cool.
sounds a whole lot better than, Life Alert and Life Assist
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
Assistant, and all of that stuff. A
Just
friend,
such a
I
deep
could go with
meaning.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's such a deep meaning. That's great. Unaliware sounds really like a cool company. So, how would you fund your current startup?
So the well, first, the journey here has been completely different. And one of those differences is in the funding side. So the first one is for all of my startups, I did two semiconductor startups. One sold to Apple, another one sold to Texas Instruments, and then we have Unaliware. They all had passion to them. They were all, I see this market need. I know that we can do this thing, and
Mm-hmm.
we did, and we sold companies, and everybody made money, and that was great. But for Unaliware, it's so much more than any of the other companies that I was a founder of because not only are we passionate about what we do, which is extending independence with dignity for vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
populations, but there's a purpose to it, and so you know a startup journey. Let me tell you, this is not for everybody. It's always difficult, always,
Mm-hmm.
and that passion, and in this particular case, that purpose has made it possible through some of the really tough times to keep things going.
Yep.
So that's that first way. The second one, though, I didn't expect at all, I'll tell you. So for my semiconductor companies, I raised about $100 million in venture capital.
Wow.
But they're semiconductors, right? Physical product companies. Remember, I swore I wasn't going to do any more of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, considering, what we do is independence with dignity. Of course, most of our customers are older adults.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and given that today, the 65 plus demographic in just the United States is about 70 million folks.
Mm-hmm.
Worldwide, it's over a billion. I figured that there would be not too many challenges. I mean, considering that it's always a challenge, but leaving that aside, that there would still be availability of money for silver tech, which is what I call, products that are dedicated primarily to older adults.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was the availability of money is very, very limited for silver tech. And there's so many reasons, but one of them is related to all of those cultural biases around aging. So let me give
Mm-hmm.
you an example. I don't know how many trillions of dollars are in venture capital in the United States today, but it is trillions with a T. And if I was to say I'm going to do a silver tech startup, there's
Mm-hmm.
only three venture capitalists that you can go to. And in total, they have 72 million, that was with an M,
Wow.
dollars to invest across all the companies. So
Mm-hmm.
that drove number three, which is the funding sources that we did for Unaliware. So Unaliware is now 10 years old. I can't believe it, but
Wow.
that's where we are.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so for the semiconductor companies, of course, when you're raising, tens of millions of dollars per company, that's pretty much going to be venture capital. And I assumed that that's what we would do here because certainly that's what I knew well. But I ended up actually raising the money for Unaliware primarily from angels. So
Wow.
individuals who were successful themselves and chose to invest their own money rather than being a VC who's always investing somebody else's money. So it's been very different.
So I'm curious, as a woman, how difficult was it to raise this money? Because, there's venture capitalists that are just not giving money to women. It's a very small percentage of women that get venture capital funding. So tell me your experience with that.
Yeah, so this is a hard deal. I mean, um, I think the way I put it is this. Um, if you're looking for bias, I promise you're going to find it,
Yes, you're
right?
right. Yep.
And there's something that I talk to my engineering team about because we're always doing things that have never been done before or never been
Hmm.
put together before, and the similar thing to that is with my engineering team when I go, hey, look, if you think it can't be done, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so for the engineers, what I say is the next part is, and so it's time to find a new job. Because you won't be happy here because we're going to do what you think can't be done.
Right, right.
So in terms of
And we'll do it because we believe in it.
well, exactly so, exactly
Mm-hmm.
so.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of bias and VCs and angels as well, it, it exists. It absolutely does. Um, but the question is, what is it that you're going to do about it? There was a fantastic paper that was published in Harvard Business Review, and gosh, I think this is all the way back like in 2016 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, there were a bunch of students at Columbia Business School that followed a bunch of VCs and angels around at TechCrunch Disrupt in New York that year, and
Mm.
they videotaped all of the interactions, and then they analyzed them. And there were two for me. There, it's a full article and everything, but for me, there were two very important pieces to it. So number one was that the female founders were
Mm-hmm.
most often asked prevention questions
Mm.
rather than promotion questions. So, as an
Mm.
example, a male founder would be asked, "How big is this going to be?" And he'd say, "Bigger than Uber," right?
Mm.
And then the female founder would be, "And what happens if nobody uses your app?" And then you're stuck, right? Having
Mm-hmm.
to defend the negative instead of promote the positive.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you've ever had the opportunity to um, get some actual public relations training, turning those prevention questions into promotion answers, that's something you can do that really helps to deal with that particular cultural bias phenomenon that happens. Okay, so that was number one. You ready for number two?
Mm-hmm. I am. This is fascinating.
Okay. So number two was this. So at that time, so I started Unaliware in 2013, and frankly, there just really weren't female VCs. There were barely even female angels back in 2013. But by 2015-ish, you were
Mm-hmm.
starting to actually see some of that being, gender lens focused. And so
Mm-hmm.
everybody's like, "Whoa, Jeanne, you need to go raise money from, this women's group and this women's group." And I was wildly unsuccessful,
Mm.
and it just blew me away. And it was like, gosh, I mean, I've done successful semiconductor startups, and I'm even striking out in my own group. And the reason was also in that article that they talked about the fact that it doesn't matter what the gender was of the questioner. It
Mm-hmm.
only matters what the gender is of the entrepreneur.
Mm.
So I was pitching the female investors as women
Mm-hmm.
and not as investors. And when I
Mm.
changed that strategy,
It
then
worked.
we started
Mm-hmm.
raising that money.
That's amazing. That is so important for our listeners, because so many women struggle with that. And getting funding is not easy, but you have to
No.
have the right mindset. You're absolutely right.
Yes, yes, you do. And you also have to have your head in the game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about what does Unaliware do? What
So,
is it's a product?
it's a product or service actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I call us because whenever there's not a word that fits what I want, I make my own, right?
That's good. I like it.
So just like Silvertech is products for older adults, we are device as a service. So you've
Mm-hmm.
heard of SaaS, right? Software as a
Mm-hmm.
service.
Right,
We're
right.
device as a service. So with a Kinega watch, you pay for the service, and it provides the only true 24/7 medical alert capability um, with automatic fall detection on the wrist in the United States.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yep. It is really, really cool stuff. And
And how
it's,
did you come up with this idea?
Well, my mom.
Oh, okay.
All of
That
the
was going to be my next question. So, yeah, tell us, what was it like to
yeah.
start a company for and with your mom?
Yeah, so I was retired, and just so you know, Jennifer, I was happy to be retired. Okay, I I was a dive master on a liveaboard dive boat. That was my dream job.
Mm-hmm.
It was so much fun, and I love scuba diving. But
Mm-hmm.
mom turned 80,
Mm,
and my mom was a model and absolutely just drop dead gorgeous and
mm,
as she got older, she got well, she was always slender. She got
mm-hmm.
kind of skinny. And
Mm-hmm.
so we had that conversation that you have, mom, I love you. I want you to be safe. I want you to live independently. How are we going to make this happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I went through as a good engineer, I brought her a spreadsheet of all of the products on the market and we talked about each one. And she looked at me and she goes, "Don't you get that for me? I'm not wearing it." And it was like, whoa. And so, I went away and I was really kind of bummed because I was very proud of my market research.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, you know what? I'm a nerd. I am not the style maven that my mom was.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but but I wouldn't wear a pendant. So why in the world would I expect my mom,
To
you
wear it,
know,
yeah.
to do that? And so I called her back up a week later and I said, "Mom, tell you what, you're going to finally understand what the joy is of having an engineer for a daughter, because we are going to make something you're willing to wear, and you're going to
Mm,
make sure that it's something that you would wear."
mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. And I,
That's
I, I tell you,
awesome.
yeah, it was such a gift. We were, she's gone now, but we got to
Oh, I'm
work on the
sorry.
company together for 5 years, and
Mm,
I would not trade that for anything. She was the senior
mm-hmm.
user experience advisor. Everything we did, she weighed in on. She got us about the first 100 of the 400 folks who came through our focus groups as we were doing design,
Nice.
and
Nice.
she weighed in on everything. So it
And
it,
did she
it was
design
great.
it?
Oh goodness, no. Um, No, no, it's a very seriously technology intensive product.
Mm-hmm.
Not that
Mm-hmm.
it looks that way to the user or the
Mm-hmm.
wearer, is what we call
Mm-hmm.
them. But in terms of the technology, so I mean, it's a smartwatch. It has cellular, it has Wi-Fi, it has GPS, it
Mm-hmm.
has Bluetooth for hearing aids and telemedicine devices. You talk to it, it talks to you, 24/7 speech, 24/7 automatic fall detection. Yeah, no, she didn't do that. And remember, when I was saying, "Hey, I'm raising money for this,"
Mm-hmm.
the Apple Watch didn't even exist yet.
Right, right. Yeah. Because now it has some of those features, but I think yours has a lot more.
Yes, and
More,
there's a
more in the
there's
medical area. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, and actually more in other areas too,
Hmm.
because it's I call this, the right tool for the right job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, although we are a smartwatch, we're not a smartwatch. We're actually a medical alert watch, cleverly disguised to be a smartwatch. And so it's explicitly and specifically designed to extend independence. And so there are things that we do that other products don't do because they don't have the population. And I'll tell you the one that usually blows people away, and that is this: we use speech to control the watch, not touch,
Yeah.
because older adults are chronically dehydrated. So
Mm-hmm.
they lack the galvanic skin response that powers touch.
Mm. That's amazing. I think that's so powerful. That's great. Now, did your mom wear the product?
She absolutely did, and I can't
Okay,
even
so
tell
she
you how
liked she
many
liked the design of
prototypes.
it.
Yes, yes, she did. But frankly, once she started the company with me, eh, how much of that is she wore it because she thought it was, the perfect style, and how much of that was she wore it because she's my mom? I
Hmm.
don't know. We
Yeah.
can't ask her.
But still, she
But
did it.
still,
So yeah.
she absolutely did, and she wore every prototype, even when we 3D printed them out of plastic. So yeah, it was
Wow.
it's not a bad thing being over 80 years old and having your own business cards.
Yes, yes, it's not a bad thing, and very, very few people exist in that way. So yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yep.
So what challenges have you faced in your career, and how have you overcome them? Can you
Oh
think
my
back
goodness.
to what really made an impression on you as a challenge?
You know, I've had lots and lots of challenges, of course,
Mm-hmm.
because my career
Right.
spans lots of years.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about the techniques that I use to overcome them, I think there's really kind of two that that I look at all the time. So the first one is the nice word is tenacity.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's actually stubbornness. My mom and I always used to joke about who was more stubborn, her or I. And about 3 years into Unaliware, she actually called me up one day and she goes, "Okay, Jean Ann, you win. You're more stubborn."
That must have felt really good.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
I teased her about that for the rest of her life. But that tenacity
Mm-hmm.
is an important part. You could call it grit, you can call it resilience, you can call it
Mm-hmm.
stubbornness, but it's an important part of bouncing back from a challenge, of
Right.
saying, this wasn't perfect, or maybe I did experience bias here, but you know what? That's just one, and there's so many more I can go
Mm-hmm.
and pitch and talk to and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the second one that goes with that is, continuing to look at, where you are, where you going, where and always be learning. So
Mm-hmm.
like, I started out talking to you about, that research from that was published in Harvard Business Review, whatever year that
It said to
was.
know how to learn. Right. Yep.
Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
so had I not been actually looking around going, why is it that I'm having trouble even pitching women when
Mm-hmm.
I'm a successful serial entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm.
And then, by continuously looking out to be learning and finding a new thing, um, that allowed me to get that nugget that said, hey, here's the way to overcome that. Don't pitch them as women, pitch them as
Mm-hmm.
investors. Got
Yep.
it.
Yep. No, that's great. And so those two things help you bounce back. But what were the challenges?
Well, I mean, um, some of those challenges are simply, I mean, I told you about some of the funding challenges for
Right.
Unaliware,
Right. Right.
right? And so between tenacity and learning, you know, I just
You
kept
got where you
raising,
needed to go. Yeah. Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And here today we're in a completely different perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
when I think of times that, for example, maybe I've faced some bias, either that I knew it was bias or I suspected it was bias, chip on my shoulder notwithstanding, you know then I kind of go back to the question that says, okay, if you're looking for it, you're definitely going to find it. So if you think you're seeing it, the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you
Mm-hmm.
going to move on, or are you going to let that be the end?
Yep.
And I just move on.
See, I think that is so good because that's exactly how I think. But a lot of people don't think that way. They're always looking at the bias and saying, I'm the victim kind of thing. And I never looked at it that way. I'm like, okay, this didn't work. Let's try something else, you know? Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, for anybody who's listening who is an entrepreneur, this is going to really resonate. If you're pitching your business and you're pitching for funding or something along those lines and it's not going well, you kind of go through this little triangle, right, of what's going wrong. And the first part of the triangle is, there's something wrong with my pitch. And so
Mm-hmm.
you get a graphics artist and they make it look gorgeous, and you argue and strategize over every single word that you use, and you still aren't doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And so then usually the next part of the triangle is it's me. It's
Mm-hmm.
my hair, it's my clothes. I need to color my hair. Maybe it's my gender, maybe it's my religion, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
me
Mm-hmm.
is usually the next piece. And then
Yes.
the third one is it's the market.
Yep.
And when I went through that triangle over and over again for Unaliware in Silvertech, the triangle actually went, it's my pitch, it's my market. And so
Mm-hmm.
now that it's such a teeny opportunity for funding here, then there's a small amount of bias that's going to come in. But you know what? I mean, there's so little money that you know the bias doesn't matter. So move on. It's not whether or not you dyed your hair.
Right. Right. Move on is the big thing. Just don't dwell on that. Just move on and find other ways to do what you're doing to get to where you need to go.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. So, what does it mean to be an industry disruptor?
An industry just so that's actually me, right? So, I told you when we started Unaliware, a decade ago means that the Apple Watch didn't exist, and here
Right.
I
Right.
am. I'm
Creating
pitching,
something that's never been there. Yep.
yeah, and nobody said, and it was I don't know how many years before an Apple Watch finally put cellular capability in the watch, but we did
Mm-hmm.
right off the
Mm-hmm.
bat, right?
Right. Right.
So industry disruptor means a couple of things. You're always ahead. So there's a very large contingent of people who go, you're never going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to
Mm-hmm.
just ignore them.
Yep. Yep.
A- And there's also, because you're always ahead, there's also a bunch of fast followers who try really hard to copy what you're doing. And
Yeah.
so you have to watch out for those guys too. And so, you know, another piece of that is um, people who are really good industry disruptors probably aren't usually the best corporate employees
Mm-hmm.
because like for me for example when I've had companies that were acquired by a corporate and I've told the corporate, hey, you guys don't want me really, I
Mm-hmm.
promise you don't,
I
and they're
don't
like,
fit in.
oh no, we really do. And I'm so then after a little while of me fixing everything, including the things that they didn't want fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then they're like, you know what, you're right. And that is a disruptor.
Yeah. Yeah. They realize, okay, that's great. I love that. I mean, we have a few disruptors we know about. It's Uber and, you know, the phone. I mean, the phone is really a disruptor today. It's changed how if you have a camera, if you have another device for a camera, alarm clock, there's so many uses. And now with all your medical uses, it makes it even more valuable.
That is totally true. And the interesting thing about that is the pieces that people don't know and the challenges that we have in some of our regulatory environments, like in the United States, if you're connected to a medical alarm call center, what that means is that they bypass 911 and go direct to dispatch.
Ah, okay.
So they directly dispatch the ambulance people or the fire people, or if you're in a rural area, maybe it's the sheriff's office.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the difference is that they're able to say, hey, you guys, you're going to see Jean Ann, and she has diabetes and she's allergic to aspirin.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go through 911, they don't have any of that information.
No,
All they
right,
know is there's an emergency at this address, go there and
right.
see
Go
who
there
it
and
is.
see. Yeah, yep. You're
And so
so right.
that doesn't work so well for our
Mm-hmm.
demographic, right? Because
Right.
most of the seniors have, two or more comorbidities, and it's kind of important that you know what kind of drugs they're on and all of that sort of stuff. So that's where those medical alert call centers come into play. And what people don't realize is that you can't actually add any physical biometrics, so heart rate,
Mm-hmm.
blood pressure, blood oxygen, any of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff with the emergency services capability. The FDA
Mm-hmm.
does not allow it. So
Wow.
that's why the Apple Watch goes to 911 and a
Mm-hmm.
Kanega watch goes direct dispatch through a medical alarm
Wow.
medicine.
Wow. And that could be a matter of life and death.
Exactly.
That time. I mean, just the time. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Amazing. So, this podcast is focused on bridging the culture, pay, and employment gap for women in tech. What are you seeing in the industry today from your lens?
Yeah, I'm not probably as up to date as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Because 2011 was the last time I was in a corporate position after
Mm-hmm.
Texas Instruments acquired my last semiconductor startup, and then I retired.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think
Do you
I
think there's been any progress for women in tech? Or I know you don't look at the bias side, so that makes it a little difficult to see it from your lens, but what do you feel is happening in the market?
I think that there has been progress,
Mm-hmm.
and also on the other side of it, I mean, usually stereotypes kind of exist because there's lots of them, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
of whatever
Right.
that stereotype is. But
Right.
having said that, um, you know, because I had 2 years of work experience at NASA before I got my first, right out of college job,
Mm-hmm.
I actually had the highest pay in my starting class.
It's
And
amazing.
so it, but some of that is, what you negotiate for, what you are willing to
Right.
accept,
Right.
right? And so it
And your
goes back to
mindset. I
that.
go back to the mindset,
Exactly.
definitely. Yeah.
Right. So if you want to see that everybody is getting paid less,
Mm-hmm.
then you
That's
probably
what you're going to
will.
see. Yep. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Having said that, though, you're probably going to find some of those situations, and then the question that you have to ask yourself is, so when you do find out that you're being paid less than somebody who's in the same grade as you, that is a different gender, and doing the same job,
What do you
what are
do?
you going to
Yeah.
do? But
Mm-hmm.
right.
Right.
And I think the key to success there from friends I know who've done it is, it's simply an unemotional discussion of the facts
Mm-hmm.
with HR and not
Right.
your manager,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
And so if you can keep all of the drama out of it, then you're much more likely to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love your mindset as to how you think and break down things because that's the key to success. Every time you think you're the victim, that's what's going to happen exactly.
I agree with
So,
you completely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. So as a serial entrepreneur, how do you know when to keep going with the startup or when to shut down? That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because
It
entrepreneurs just
is.
want to keep going, right? But you have to also look at the financial side and make sure that, that it's viable to keep going.
Yeah, and exactly what you said, but I think there's even more to it than that. And I tell you, of all of my startups, Where has been the one that has really taught me this lesson.
Okay.
And that is this. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, you simply fall in love with your idea. You're sure you're
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yep. You have a few
And
successes and you want to keep going. Yep.
right. And maybe
Mhm.
you aren't right. Okay. So dispassionately, you have to say, am I actually doing something that makes sense? Right.
Yep.
But then after you do and you're still struggling,
Mm-hmm.
that question about how do you know when it's time to give up is this. It's a very simple question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have paths to go down still?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you still have paths to go down, you're not done yet.
Yep. Yep.
So if that means, um, you still have another venture capitalist that you didn't follow up with,
Mm-hmm.
or that you
Mm-hmm.
didn't pitch yet, or an angel group you didn't talk to, or a prospective partner that you should try to see if they want to partner with you, you have to just keep going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, even when you talk about, um, the money pieces, there were times in the last decade of Unali where everybody would be telling me, Jean Ann, you just need to give up. This is never going to work. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna happen. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, here we are today. New York Times Wirecutter magazine just called us the best medical alert for on the go. Not
Wow.
one of the best, not one of the best,
The
but
best. Yeah.
the best,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I had taken their advice,
You had
we
never got
wouldn't
to this
be
point. Yep.
saving the lives that we're saving today,
Yep.
right? And so when I kept asking myself the question, right, the first one is, are you fooling yourself about whether or not the world wants what you're trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
And every time I kept going around that question, it would be like, yes, people do want to be
You're
independent
saving
and
lives
safe.
every day. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And
That's great.
oh, by the way, here's another path I haven't gone down yet, so I
Mm-hmm.
guess I'm not done.
Yep. And I'm so impressed because, after you're retired and you come out of retirement, I think you have a different mindset. You don't have that much passion or you don't have that much resiliency, I guess. But you did. You still do. So that's amazing. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. So many of those myths of aging are just myths.
Yeah.
I said, the one thing about stereotypes is, oftentimes there's lots of people that drive those stereotypes, but when it comes to the myths of aging, those are really just myths. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you think about an older adult and everybody gets this mental image of some old woman staring pensively out the window, worrying about money with her walker or her cane by her side.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that people above the age of 65 are the controlling number one spending group for
Wow.
119 of the 127 consumer product categories?
Wow. I did not know that, but that's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's an audience that you should be paying attention to, right?
exactly. So
Mhm.
here's a place where our stereotypes, because here, I mean, it's actually not even stereotypes, it's actually cultural biases are
Mhm.
leading us completely wrong.
Yep.
Because just because you're older, um, you
Doesn't
know,
mean that you're done, right?
right. Yeah,
Wow.
there was
And
a,
look at your
there
mom at
was
80. I mean, look at your mom at 80 was now, in business with you. And she had business cards and she was testing and doing R&D and doing everything. So that's
that's right.
amazing. Yeah.
That's exactly true. And the amazing thing here is, in today's world of DEI, there's only one prejudice that is still acceptable, and that's
Mhm.
ageism,
Wow. Yeah.
right? Because
Yep.
we make all of these cultural biases and assumptions. There was um, an ad for Postmates, one of the food delivery services, and they had it in New York Subway. And the ad reads, "When you want a whole cake to yourself because you're turning 30, which is
Mhm.
basically 50, which is basically dead. Dessert, we get it. Postmates."
Mhm.
It's like, really, 50 is dead.
That's
Well, gosh, I didn't
amazing.
know that
Yeah.
I died more than
Yeah.
a
You've
decade
had
ago.
many lives already. So have I. That's amazing. Really funny. But that's right. You're as old as you feel. There's nothing else that stops you from doing anything you want to do.
And I think, one of the epiphanies I had when we were doing the focus groups with my mom, we actually had one where one of the members of the focus group was actually a guy who went to college with my dad, and he was telling a story about when they were in college,
Mhm.
and something happened and somebody did this, and they almost got in trouble, and they stole this, and
Mhm.
like one of those pranks that you do in
Mhm.
college, right?
Mhm.
So not stealing like stealing, but a prank steal.
Right.
And I'm looking at this guy he was 85 at the time, and he's telling this story, and I suddenly realized he actually doesn't see the guy I see, right?
Mhm.
So that image you see in the mirror when you get older isn't that isn't who you feel like inside, right? So every
That's
once in
so
a while I
smart.
look in the
Yeah.
mirror and I go, holy moly.
Yeah,
Is
me
that really
too.
what I look
Me
like?
too.
Because that's
Yeah.
not what I think I look like.
Right. Right. Because you don't feel like it, but yeah, you are getting old in your body, but doesn't mean that your mind has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So why do you think the Kanega watch has been so popular amongst people who wear it? What is like the main qualities that they look for?
The most important thing, when I designed the watch, I actually thought it was going to be the fact that it's actually 24/7 for real.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Mm-hmm.
have a patented battery system in the band that means you never take it off to charge. So you
Ah,
can wear it
nice.
in the bed, you wear
Mm-hmm.
it in the shower. And since the number one cause of injury death among seniors is falls,
Mm-hmm.
mostly in the bathroom at night,
Right.
this is an important protection time. And
Sure.
and honestly, that's what made me come out of retirement to start the company, was because, if I could give my mom true 24/7 protection,
Mm-hmm.
then,
You could
I
have
had it
some ease,
made.
peace of mind too. Yeah.
Exactly. But in terms of the wearer population, if you ask them, because of
Mm-hmm.
course they're getting a watch that's truly 24/7,
Mm-hmm.
it's all about fall detection on the wrist, right? Fall
Oh,
detection without stigma. Fall detection where they don't have to tell anybody they're wearing a medical alert
right,
device,
right, right. It's a watch.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's exactly right. And the maladies of aging, falls is definitely one of them.
Oh gosh,
And
yes, I know.
it,
As I get older,
and
I'm like, my balance needs to be better, because falling is easy. Yeah.
and most of the fall detection that is in the medical alert marketplace is actually, um, they take actors, they have the actors fall, and they use that for the algorithms.
Hmm.
And with a decade of data collection, I submit to you that real people don't fall like actors,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
when real people fall, for one thing, they have a tendency to get hurt,
Yep.
right?
Yep. That's what I was going
And
to say.
no
They hurt
actor's going to
themselves.
do
Yep.
that. That's
Right.
right. So our fall detection is actually based on fall detection over the last decade. For a long time, it was all just my falls. But
Hmm.
our
Well,
fall
and it's
detection over the
real.
last decade of real falls, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what we do. It's real fall technology.
Very neat. Very neat. Because that's really, I see a lot of that in older people. And if they live by themselves, it's really tough because then nobody knows. And you could just be laying there and not be able to get up for days.
And even if you don't live by yourself, I mean, for one
Right.
of my girlfriends, her mom loved to garden. Her mom was out in the garden. She tripped. She was not able to get up. I think she
Mm-hmm.
might have broken her leg in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband was watching TV, and
Mm-hmm.
of course the volume on loud, and
Mm-hmm.
she's sitting there throwing rocks at the door to try to
Oh,
get
yeah.
his
Get his
attention,
attention.
right?
Yep. Yep.
So it's not just about being alone. It's actually about being self-reliant, right?
Yep. Yep.
Being in control of your own aging. And that's important.
So true. So true. Wow. Wow. Makes me think a lot about different devices. And that's really, really a great quality that people like because the fall detection is so important.
Yes, it truly is.
Hmm. Okay. So now I have a selfish question for you. What is your
Okay.
favorite place that you've traveled to and why? And it's selfish because I love to travel. And so I take ideas from my guests if there is a place that kind of appeals to me. So tell me, what is your favorite place or the place that you've gone to and loved it? and why?
Okay, well, see, I don't know if this is going to work for you unless you're an
Okay,
avid scuba
that's
diver
okay.
like I am.
No, I am not.
So,
So yes, but
let's
that's okay.
see.
If it's your favorite, I want to hear about it.
So, I am a seriously avid scuba diver. And when I go
Wow.
on
Okay.
vacation, it's not a matter of where are you going. It's a question of where are you diving.
Okay.
So two of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of these are actually safe right now,
Yeah. Yep.
but Galapagos,
Yep.
scuba diving in the Galapagos, and also in Papua New Guinea, which I'm not sure I would go
Mm.
there right now, but it was incredible diving there.
How about the Rotan area? I've heard a lot of,
Roatan is awesome.
yeah,
Yes, I've
yeah,
I've
I've
been to
heard lots of
Roatan a
good
number
things.
of
Yeah.
times.
And,
So if
I
you
don't know
asked
about
for
comparison, but I think, a lot of people have said it's amazing.
Yes, and if you asked for some of my favorite dive sites, I have
Hmm.
one that is actually in Roatan. One of my favorite dive sites is called Inside Outside,
Oh,
and the coral architecture is so cool. You're going in and out of the reef,
wow.
and it kind of looks like like a vertical canyon of chain links or something. I don't know how to describe it, but anyway, it's really neat.
Is there any kind of device that you use to capture any of that? The coral, like a camera or GoPro or something like that, or no?
Yeah, I do. I do have an underwater video camera. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
can also shoot still photos, but mostly I do video because
Mm-hmm.
I love
Watching
actually
them later.
seeing
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
wildlife in
I bet.
the real wild.
Mm-hmm.
So I have cool things like, squids laying eggs and, you
Wow.
know, lots of sharks and
Yeah, I'm
stuff.
not a good swimmer, so that's not going to happen. But I
Okay.
love, love, love hearing what you're saying because it's just fascinating to me. Yep. Oh, that's great. Oh, so Jean Ann, this has been such a pleasure and an honor to have you on my show. I know our guests are going to love listening to our conversation, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you, and hopefully one day, in the future, you can come back.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you. It was a great,
Sure.
great fun.
Yes, and if you can share with our listeners how they can get a hold of you.
The easiest way to get a hold of me is probably either LinkedIn or
Hmm.
actually through Unaliware and our website. And so that's
Hmm.
UNALIWEAR.com, Unaliware.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure if there's, anyone who wants to learn more about what you do and maybe talk to you about their path, that would be great. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This was such a pleasure, and I hope to talk to you again.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Tech in the Right Direction. Please take a minute to subscribe or follow so that you never miss an episode. Also, don't forget to like, share, and comment. Thank you. See you next week.
From IT skill enhancements to end user adoption training, Directions Training is your resource to help optimize the effectiveness of your technology investments. Over 500,000 students have taken advantage of our wide selection of technology and business training solutions, covering the most popular applications today, such as Microsoft 365, Azure, Windows 10, and more. As a podcast listener, we invite you to take advantage of an exclusive offer. Receive 30 days of free access to our Microsoft official curriculum on-demand courses for IT professionals or end users. Visit us at www.directionstraining.com/podcast to claim this offer today. Hurry, this offer is only available for a limited time. Success is a journey. Ask for directions.